You've done all your hard work. This thing is waterproofed, it's created, it's knocked together, it's in great shape, it's ready to come to life. And this stage is called dry brushing. And this is when you bring this thing absolutely out of its shell and turn it into the wonderful piece of art that it's going to become. If you know what dry brushing is, move on, because I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know. If you don't know what dry brushing is, then be prepared for the most wonderful painting experience you will ever get to simply and easily bring detail out of flat, black, or dull nothingness. My painting scheme for these pumpkins uses orange, brown, green, and hiding in the back somewhere, a bright yellow. Starting off with brown. For dry brushing, you're going to need a paintbrush that you no longer love as you once did. Maybe all the bristles are going out in weird directions. Maybe it's been washed a few too many times. Or you can just use a new one. It doesn't really matter. But if you grab an old scummy brush, then you'll be doing it a final wonderful service. Even though it might not be good for other applications anymore, it will be fine and perfect for dry brushing. You're going to need a surface that you can get paint on with relative ease. That's totally off camera what I was just doing. Right, so I'm using a bit of newspaper here. Yeah, well, just figure it out. Aha. Yay, newspaper. Okay. Bit of cardboard, bit of newspaper, something you can get paint on without worrying about it in any way, shape, or form. And, well, here's how it works. First, you make sure your paint isn't a dry lump of scum, because that can happen. Nope, we're good. But I am going to give this a quick shake. Use the stuff on the back of the cap first. Alright, so dry brushing. Get a little bit of paint on your brush, and then promptly brush most of it off on your surface. So get rid of the excess paint. And then, with your mostly dry brush, start going nuts on the surface, back and forth, left and right, and what you should see is any area that is raised up or ridged in any way is going to accept most of the paint. And any area that is recessed in any way is going to remain dark, because the paintbrush is going to sweep right over it. And keep your brush dry. Nice and dry. All those beautiful raised ridges that were created with the paper are now going to start jumping out. A little bit. It's brown. It's not till we get to orange that this is really going to start to light up. If you're not seeing anything, use a little bit more paint. Alrighty. So you can see how the raised areas are picking up the color and the recessed areas are not. And you're just going to keep doing this to bring out all the ridges and texture in your pumpkin. Dry brushing also dries very, very quickly, so you should not need to worry about giving any kind of dry time between coats or applications of this. If for any reason you screw up, you apply way too much wet paint to an area, and it goes almost completely whatever color you're putting on there, be it orange, be it brown, whatever, just moisten your finger a little bit and rub it off. And then wipe your finger. Obviously don't stick it back in your mouth. Or just use a moistened towel, something to just get the extra paint off. And then go back over it to taste. Good. Our brown base coat's on. Now we're going to start up some orange. Don't dry brush one color in the same spot you brushed another one, particularly if this one's still wet. You don't want your colors mixing up. So I'm just going to move this over to a separate spot where I can get my orange on here. I will bring this up briefly again so you can see what's happening with the dry brushing. Again, the edges are all coming to life. And as you increase in your shade, it's going to be more and more pronounced of an effect. Okay, we're on to our nice pumpkin-y orange. This is where we're going to see this project really start to appear. In the orange phase, you're going to want to start avoiding any area that you want to be the green of the stem. So as you sweep over with your dry brush, watch out for stemmy bits and dodge them. But otherwise the technique is the exact same. Whatever color you see first in the dry brushing stage will get darker as it dries. So if you see a big, bright, beautiful, shiny orange and you think, that's what I want, that's perfect, give it about 2 to 5 minutes. It's going to darken up. You might even find that at the end of the orange dry brush, the whole thing just seems way too dark. That's fine. That's what the yellow is for. Yellow will brighten up everything significantly. So here we go. Starting to become more and more pumpkin-like. Avoiding all the stem areas and brushing away. You can dry brush the orange on for as long as you feel like. With the black undercoat, like as not, the project will always seem a little bit too dark. That's to be expected. I want to brush this one a little bit more than my previous ones because I thought they have been a bit too darn dark. But so long as you are catching the raised and ridged areas, you're doing yourself the ultimate favor. And if your end product is just a hair too dark, that's fine. Because the final step is to give everything a dry brush of yellow, which will improve the shade quality several times relatively rapidly. Once you have yourself appropriately oranged to taste, then we're going to start on the stem. We're going to do some dry brushing green along any stem area. Your green will probably appear fairly dark, and that also is not a problem. Because again, the last stage of this is still giving everything a nice bright yellow boost that will jack the brightness of every tone in the project. Just like with your orange, any greens you use for stem colors will mute themselves as they dry. So be prepared to compensate for that with a little bit of retouching till it's at the tone you want it to be at. Okay, so here we go. There's our boy. There's his stem, all nicely greened up and radiating out. To me, he still appears too dark, but that is absolutely anticipated. So, because that stem paint was a little bit oily, it takes a little bit longer to dry. So I'm going to give this a little bit of time, come back to it, and then I'm going to finish this up with a final dry brush of yellow to bring some serious color out and light them up beautifully. Okie dokie, our monster is about ready to get his final little touch up. This last stage is using some yellow paint to really just add some shine to burst out and give him some color. As dark as you might want a project, remember on Halloween, assuming this is for Halloween and not some freak who hangs pumpkins at Easter, because I know people do it for Christmas. I'm just going to change the subject. You're probably well aware that unless you keep light on something, it just will not stick out. So this final phase will brighten up the entire project. And we're going to take some yellow and hit all the raised edges we can. This is going to really brighten this fellow up. This is one stage where you have to be careful of your dry brushing, because if you make it too bright, you can use that same trick where you just moisten your finger and take it down a little bit. But you do want to try to avoid going way too overboard on this stage. If you're going for sinister, this can give your project a sunny disposition. So just be aware of that little coloring nuance. The yellowing layer goes all over, so not just the orange but the green as well. And it will bring out the shine everywhere it goes.
The ghosts are moving tonight, restless, hungry.
Keen students of visual perception will know that the human eye tends to perceive brighter objects as being closer than darker objects. In this painting method, where you're taking things up from a dull black to brown to orange to yellow, you're giving the eyes of any spectator a little extra help in perceiving the detail that's been captured already. And that's why we do it this way. So here's what's going on so far. Hopefully the light is catching a lot of the texturing. I can see on the camera some areas are appearing a little bit too yellow, or more yellow than they have any right to be. So that is what it's turning into. Now my brush is picking up a little bit of green from this top paint that I mentioned before was a bit oily. And as I look on this side, I'm seeing some of that green has carried on over. So I'm going to get my brush a little bit more cleaned off. I may go over this area again with another hit of orange to dull that down, because the last thing I want is an overabundance of green here on the side of my pumpkin. Not where it's supposed to be. It's on the top. It's good on the top, not on the side. So I'm going to do a little brush maintenance and get back to it. of yellow that was still there. Not a problem. Handy to have something to wipe with if you come across these issues. When you've got a dry brush layer going on, it's not too hard to get rid of it if you don't like what you've got. Fantastic. Our fine friend here is just about ready for one final layer of spar varnish on his outside to keep him super safe from the elements. And also a little splash of spar varnish up around the back of the face to make sure that this one is as waterproof as possible. And this, relatively, is what your finished project will look like, assuming you go for the super sinister method. You get all the beautiful texturing across the vines, the wrinkly features on the face. This thing is a creep factory. I'm not going to put a ton of effort into the bottom because this is going to be resting on the ground. I doubt he'll be up in the air at all. If you do have a pumpkin that's going to be in the air, make sure you attend to the bottom. But otherwise, let's give this guy his final coat and then a quick spray of matte varnish so he doesn't shine like a freaking glass wall. And then we're in good shape.